Which one?
Yes, you on tape.
Which one? No.
Okay, can at least one person on the phone tell me they can see my screen?
I can see it.
Okay, thank you.
Me too.
So I'm going to start out as basic as I can, and if there's any point that you're unclear, make sure you stop me. So I'm going to start here on the home page, and I want to start with one of the first rules of Confluence, and I think one of its most powerful features, which is it's very easy to change things, and all content in this library can and should be maintained by any team member. So someone in the past 4 months should have noticed that we're not currently doing anything with bundle 32.
I did.
So to fix that, you just click on edit, click on bundle 32, click on edit. I don't want to link to bundle 32 anymore. I want to link to bundle 33. And when you're doing all of your links, it automatically, it's got some pretty nice auto type for you. So it's pretty easy to find other pages. The link text still says bundle 33, so I have to make sure I change it in both places. I click save. That saved this edit, but not the page itself. Now I click save. Now I've got bundle 33.
I didn't change it because I thought that we're still running bundle 32 in production, so I didn't change it. But
I guess it, yeah. What
Well,
does
that
that
means
mean, actually?
what one we're working with.
on currently. So when would we change it to bundle 34?
When we start working.
Well, whenever it's most useful to have a link right in the
Right
middle
there.
of the page.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
you could have multiple links there.
When it's useful.
Yeah, exactly. So this is probably what a lot of you have as your opening page for SA Team. It's not what I usually have, but I wanted to show you that this sidebar can be minimized because I'd like to have that extra real estate. So just be aware. And then these drop downs exist if you want to get to that information down there.
So those space shortcuts.
Sorry.
Are you gonna get to those space shortcuts at some point? So I don't ask now. I just wondered.
Go ahead.
Do we have to create those, or do they?
No, these are maintained by the administrators, which are, I think, Chris and Lindsay and I and Margaret are the ones that currently have that access. So if there are things that you think would be useful to have there, let us know and we can add them. But it's not specific to each person. Okay. So I'm going to go through some basics of just creating pages. So I've created a little BB test area. I would encourage all of you to create your own little test pages that you can have off, because the best way to learn all of this, and in fact, one of the only ways to learn all of this, is to experiment. So if you have your own page, you have the comfort of knowing that you're not going to mess up someone else's work. Go ahead.
So that page you created right there, you just said create child page?
No. Well, let me show you. So I know that the organization of Confluence can be pretty confusing because it's not front and center at all. So for the most part, it's very flat, and you don't necessarily have to care where all the pages are, but I know some people do care. So the way it works is that whatever page you're looking at, when you click the Create button on that page, it will be created as a child of that page. And all that really means is that it's going to show up in this Child Pages sidebar over here. But it really has no relation to where you can connect that page to in the rest of the universe. So you can cross-link things all over the place and even between spaces. So there's lots of the pages, like even that bundle 33 that we were looking at is actually in the SA Tech Team space, the SA Tech Team area. So you can easily cross back and forth.
Okay, because where things are located does make a difference to me. And I'm thinking, you're creating this under SA team, and there could be a bazillion of us creating stuff under SA team. But if we know that there's some logic built into the pages we create, I'd probably not create mine here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna go, that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and create a blank page at the SA team level. And I'm just gonna call it sandbox. And the body, I'm just gonna say placeholder to create child pages for people to experiment with. So I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. Since I created that from the SA team level, if I now go back to the SA team page, I should see it as a child page here. Okay. So now I'll go back to my sandbox. And now if I were to create BB test, it would hang off of here.
But you could link to BB test.
And I could also link to BB test from here as well.
Can you change BB test to be a child page at least?
Yes, that's what I was just about to do.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So if you do want to reorganize things, I'll go to Tools and Move. And my new space, so space is the very topmost level. So really right now we pretty much have two spaces. There's SA Team and SA Tech Team. We've also got one for UA Portal. I created one for U Alerts. I think I created another one for something else I forgot. But so right now my BB test has a parent page of SA Team, which is the name of the home page. But I want to change that to Sandbox. And before I do that, I want to note that on all of the linking pages should have these four common attributes over here. So I use recently viewed more often than anything else, because usually I've just edited the page that I want to link to or link from. So instead of even typing it in, I'll just go over to recently viewed, click on Sandbox, and you'll see it has current location SA Team. New location is going to be underneath Sandbox. So I'll go ahead and move that. Now it's there. So if I go back to the Sandbox page, now I see that child page as, the child page underneath Sandbox. But you'll notice that Sandbox itself, the page still has no reference to that file at all. So you still have to link those together if you want to find them outside of that sidebar, which I think is a concept that a lot of people aren't comfortable with or confuses people.
Can I ask a broader question?
Uh-huh.
So I know that there's a separate confluence site for the portal project.
Yes.
So what kinds of content are you hoping that people are going to log in the SAT confluence site? What is along there, and how do you know who to bring it out? Or would it make sense for degree holders to have their own confluence page? Or does that all really fall within the SAT?
We do. If you go back to the main page.
Well, hang on. That's okay. Were you going to add to that, or?
I was just basically going to say we kind of do. We all have our own pages under the SAT.
Right. The main.
It's broad, why was it broken out that way?
Yeah,
Right,
some
but
of
the portal, I would think kind of rolls up even as a separate project.
Well, one of the main reasons is it's definitely a separate project. So the biggest reasons to create a different space, one is searchability, so that you can easily confine your search to a specific space, but it's harder to narrow it to a certain region in that space. You also have templates that are specific to spaces. You can also watch an entire space. So if you want to see all of the changes that happen in a particular area, so those might be some reasons that you would create your own area. Yeah, security is also inherited from the top down.
So do you all, I'm sorry, I'm asking those questions because
No.
do you all grant access to this confluence page to your functional offices? Or is this locked down and it's never?
No, we decided early on to make Confluence completely public.
So everything within on-site website.
Not everything. We have some pages that are secured that we don't want the public to go into.
Right, but by default, it's open to the public.
Like I lock my specs down because they contain our proprietary admissions criteria and ASU. Just love that. So that's our competition. So you have to be logged in as a user. Anybody in SA team can get in and look at it, but the general public gets a blank page.
So you're saying it's publicly open to the folks in SA?
Anybody.
The world, actually.
And then I have certain things in mind locked down to just the people in SA, like my specs are only available for people in SA because the world doesn't need to see them.
But SA team as a whole is not open to the public.
SA Team as a whole is open to the public.
Is open.
It's open to view, but not to edit.
That's what my question is.
Yeah, they can view content, but they can't edit it.
So I was going to cover something about child pages, and then I'll go over security a little bit. So one of the things you can do on any of your pages is insert a macro to display all of the child pages that you have on there. So let me go over that again. I want to insert more content. This is where all macros are pretty key in all of in Confluence in general. And there's a lot of stuff you can do in there. So you want to experiment as much as you can with the different types of macros.
You're in Sandbox, you're not in BB test.
Correct. You're still in Sandbox. So I went to other macros. As you use so everything above this line, I think, is static for everyone. Everything below this line tends to change as I use them, it seems like. So I'm going to go to other macros, and then I searched for children display. And there aren't really that many macros, so you can browse through them pretty easily to experiment and get an idea of what's out there. So I went ahead and clicked on that, and then that is where I inserted this children display.
Can I take one step back?
Uh-huh.
Can we get a definition of what a macro is?
A macro is just a way to achieve a piece of functionality inside of Confluence. I can't really think of a better way to explain it than that.
If the only other context for macro that I know is in Excel. And if you use a macro in Excel, then you can actually press record, do a bunch of things like formatting, bolding, shifting, sorting, and then press stop. And then every time you select that macro, it will take those exact same steps and do them to any document that you have open. So in this case, it is, it's
So it's something that does something within another.
Yeah. So so it will if you choose the children display macro, it will always display the children page. And you can put that and cut and paste it anywhere on any page and always get that same level of list of instructions.
Think of it, I know this may be a little bit of a misnomer, but I tend to think of it like a toolkit. For the things I can do on this page, and the tools I can employ on this page.
That's a good way to think of it. So another general feature of editing is you can preview things before you save them. So I'm going to go ahead and preview because this doesn't really give me an idea of what it's going to show. So I'm going to click on preview, and I see it's literally going to list the 3 test pages. Becky's being very good, working along with us. But that's just some floating content that I think doesn't really help at this point. So I'm going to go back and edit it and just throw on a label. And now I know at least what that content is. So I'll just go ahead and save it. But this is something you can make use of it or not, depending on how you want to organize your stuff. But it's I think it can be a very powerful, or a good way to start organizing your files. Gives you more visibility into the files that you have out there.
You put the cute little box around it, because right now I'm just working down the page linearly. It's over there on the left, and it's a big list of files, and that's pretty much all that's out there on my page.
So you want me to put the cute little box around it? How do you put the cute little box? There are two ways. Well, there are multiple ways, but we'll just go with a panel. So, and I'll show you actually two different ways to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and insert another macro. And there's a very powerful one called panel. So with all of the macros that you do, a lot of them have, these are, I think, generally called parameters, but they're different inputs that you can give to them. So in this case, I can give it a title. I can decide whether or not it's dashed or solid. I can give it different colors, et cetera, et cetera. In most cases, you don't actually have to fill out any of this information. So if there's a lot of options on the side, like with the child pages, I don't know if you noticed, but there were like 20 of them that I could have picked from, but you don't have to. So I'll go ahead and insert that. And now you'll see it's got a panel, child pages. I'm going to go ahead and preview it, and it's going to throw up this box with the dashed line around it.
Can you just drag that macro down? The child pages macro?
Put it inside and.
Cool.
Yes.
Nice.
I could have also highlighted this, went to insert macros. So I could have done it either way. Another organization thing that I like to do, let me get rid of some of these panels. You can have different layouts for the entire page. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one, which is a 2-column section with right sidebar. So that gives me 2 major areas on the page. And I'm going to drag this whole panel over to here.
Haha.
And if for some reason I decided I needed more sections, I'm going to go ahead and add a section. Let's just say header area. I want to move this up to the top. And now you see I've got really 4 quadrants that I can play with.
I've gotten into trouble a couple of times after I put a lot of content on a page and then decided I wanted to add sections and have really, really created more work for myself. So just be really
Try to do
layout. Or just work with the layout as you're putting content in, rather than trying to force a layout around a ton of content.
So let me talk a little bit about security. The security goes from the top down, which is one of the reasons that we decided to make it open to the world, because otherwise we had no option to make a page open to the world, because it inherits all of the permissions from the very top level down. We're going to create an entirely new space. So I've gone to the SA Team wiki page, but in a new browser window, so I'm not logged in. And you can see that some of these links are underlined as if they don't exist. So the who's who, which is full of our cell phone numbers, I can't get to that information. It looks like I can't even click to it. And if I were to navigate directly there, I think I just get literally a blank page. But if I go ahead and log in,
By the way, this is a fabulous way to scare yourself to death.
Yeah,
What do
when
you
go
mean?
and you click here.
I went logged in my specs, and I'm like, oh my god, where are all my specs? And I realized, well, I'm not logged in.
Yeah.
I don't have the backup. You know.
so now I've got, so now you can see I have access to the who's who. I can click into it. Now when I'm on this page, the way that I know it's restricted is this big red padlock. So currently restrictions apply. Right now we have SA Tech Team and SA Funk Team as who it's currently restricted to. I don't think I've added Katie to either one of these groups, so I'm going to go ahead and add her individually with viewing access. I'm going to go ahead and save it. So that's how you can restrict access. We have those two groups available, SA Tech Team and SA Funk Team, and you can just add users individually beyond that. And if you're not sure who's in a group, just add the user. It's pretty simple to do.
Brett?
Yep.
And maybe someone's already asked this question regarding top-down security
Yes.
in our area.
Mhm.
Is there some sort of a flow, something written, a flow chart or something that says, you know, this is open to the world, but over here, nope, these are restricted, just to get sort of a visual view of
No, everything is open to the world.
everything.
Unless it has that little.
Unless it has the little padlock, and I have no idea who has put a padlock on things and who hasn't. So that's, yeah. There is no area or region that's locked down for just us to use. So we want people.
Be careful what you write.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no templates.
Yeah, the pages you don't want, just make sure you're restricted.
So this actually gives me a good chance to talk about table editing, which is fairly straightforward, but since I'm in here, I might as well go into it. So Katie, who's a new member of our team, does not exist in here. So I'm going to go ahead and find the right place to put her in the table. I'm going to pick row, insert, four. Pretty straightforward stuff with the tooltips. And I'll leave that for Katie to fill out later. Very, very straightforward. But since I'm here, I will talk about versioning, which is another question that a lot of people have. And actually, let me, yeah. So within Confluence, everything is saved pretty much all the time. So I'm going to go to Tools and Page History. And you'll see that this is the 15th version of the page. So if I go back to this one, that's probably when I added cat. If I go back to this one, you'll see probably right here is when I added Camille to the who's who, and right here is when Camille filled out her own information. So if I click on any of these versions over here, I can go back to that point. Well, actually, at this point, I'm just viewing it. And if I want to compare it with the current, it will actually give me a little kind of a cool chart and see what's changed and what's been added. So between this version, I don't remember what I clicked on 4 or 5 times ago, but it's showing me what's been, this line was added, this line was removed, et cetera, et cetera. If I wanted to, and I won't, but I can. So right now I'm on the comparison. I'm going to go ahead and go, I can actually just scroll through the different versions. So right now it's comparing versions 9 and version 8. I'm going to go back to the page, back to the history. And let's say that the change I made to add Katie, Katie decides she hates Confluence and wants to quit the team. I'm going to go ahead to this version, and I'm going to restore this version. I can add a little comment. Katie doesn't like us. And now we see that we are back to the previous version. Now, I believe if I go to page history, it still has that version that I restored from, so I could easily roll back to that. But so that's how that's one of the reasons that I think it's that I would encourage everyone to try to use Confluence natively as much as possible, rather than just using it to attach documents.
Does Confluence have a versioning cycle? I guess I'm just saying maybe
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Not that I'm
or
aware.
a period of time that you remove older versions.
No, not that I'm aware of. One thing we did discuss in terms of building a functional spec is that once you've decided, I mean, in the course of editing a functional spec, you might create 100 versions, hopefully not, but you could. So there was some discussion around once you've got like a solid point in time, you might want to go in here and delete all the little capitalization mistakes and whatever.
This is still on Amazon.
I'm sorry?
It's art is Confluence also over Amazon.
No. But in addition to, so this is the versioning that's built into Confluence itself. Let me see if I can get back to my test page. Oh, there we go. So attachments. This has 3 attachments. They're actually kind of hard to find. This little paperclip only exists because I do have attachments. If you're on a page that has no attachments, you have to go to Tools and where is it? Attachments. Very first one. So if I'm looking at actual files that are attached to this document, looks like I've already thrown some stuff up here as an example. So this is version 1, version 1, version 1. So let me go ahead and find some files to throw up there. So in terms of dealing with files, one of the really awesome things is you can just drag and drop files on there pretty easily. So I'm just grabbing this file at random over from my monitor over here. So I'm on this other side. Well, let me just show you briefly. So I've got this file explorer over here. I'm literally just going to drag and drop, and now it's uploaded. It's that straightforward. So with these, so this is the file I just uploaded. This image. So now let's pretend this is a Word document and that I've just made some changes. So now I want to re-upload that document. I'm just going to drag and drop this again. It's up there, and now I've got 2 versions of the document. So it does versioning of file attachments as well. So in addition to all of that, there are a few things that it does for trying to prevent you from stomping on each other. So this is a Confluence tips page that we have. Here's something that I put up there earlier on simultaneous editing. So if you try to edit a page and someone else has it open, it's going to warn you that that's the case. There's a big yellow box that appears right up here. It says this page is being edited by Margaret Flint. If you're in the middle of editing a page and someone else opens it, the same thing pops up, which is pretty neat. And then finally, if you try to save it, it's going to complain as well. So at that point, you need to, IM that person and say, hey, I did this thing, or whatever the case may be, and try to sort it out.
Touch my stuff. No.
So I think there's a fairly decent versioning system. There's not true locking, although I suppose if you could go in and change the restrictions on the page, remove everyone else's ability to edit the page, make your changes. That's a lot of work, yeah. But I think that covers the versioning aspects of it. Any questions about that? Okay, so I'm going to go back to my BV test page, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new functional spec. So on this create page, you'll see there are a lot of options, and this is a lot like in Microsoft Word where it says, I don't remember what it says because I don't use Word very often, but when you create it, when you start a new document, it asks, is this a cover letter, is this a whatever the case may be. So this is a mixture of stuff that Confluence has delivered. I would definitely encourage you to play with it because there's a lot of cool stuff in here. In the current version of that we're on, they introduced a feature called Blueprints, which gives you a lot more sort of driven user experience where it prompts you to fill things out. It's pretty slick. So in addition to the things that it delivers, this is also where you will see templates that people have created. So someone has experimented and created an FA test script template. In order to create templates, you do have to be an administrative user on the site. So it's not something that you can necessarily play with easily. I'm sorry? No. Because as far as I can tell, there is no. I think if you're an admin user, you have access to do all kinds of stuff, including accidentally delete all the pages. So, they did add an Evernote plugin, so you can actually import your stuff directly from Evernote if you're an Evernote user. But
the meeting notes up there.
Yeah.
I usually take my meeting notes in front page. You're in whatever it is.
OneNote.
Thank you. Is it possible just to bring that up and then not necessarily attach and paste in? Or does it want the proprietary meeting notes thing?
No, meeting notes, you can certainly paste in anything you want. Just like in Word, if you tell Word I'm about to create a cover letter, and then you open it and create a report of some kind, it's not going to yell at you. Yeah. So, but in this case, I'm going to create a new functional spec, which is a template that we've delivered, that we've created. I do want to remind you that the templates are space specific, and so the functional spec is in the SA team area, and SA Tech team has, I think, the Control M one. Yeah, the Control M job. We also have one for the bundle process. But if you can't find a template that you're looking for, make sure you look at which space you're in. You can create a page in any other space using another space's template, but you just have to find it first. So I'm going to go ahead and create my functional spec. This is a fantastic template that Margaret put together for us. It's got a lot of pretty groovy stuff on it. So these info boxes, within templates, there's a mixture of things that you should delete yourself after the fact. That's what this info box is. And then there are things like this gray text here, which is just going to disappear as soon as I start typing it. So I'm going to start from the top. And it's telling me that I should name the page above according to this convention. Mod number, spec.
Yeah,
Mod title.
I don't know if we still need that, but that's how it was there.
That's just what I'm naming the page. And it's telling you up top where I'm going to put this page. So because I clicked create from the BB test page, it's now a child of this page.
So the BB test page is open to the world.
Yes.
So if I were to go in and play under Becky to try to figure out how I want my world to be, could I just keep our SA users? I mean, I don't care if any of us see it, but I don't want the world
Sure.
looking at it. Not that I'm going to hide anything, but it's just kind of a messy area, play area.
Sure. So now I'm done with this info box. So I'm going to highlight the box itself. One thing that I think is a little confusing is the difference between say deleting the text in this box and deleting the box itself. So right there, I would have thought that I was deleting. I highlighted all the text in the box and I hit delete, but somehow the whole box is gone. So just like most other applications, you have Control Z, and it has saved me a billion times in here because I do this all the time. And I have no idea why it deleted that whole info box instead of that whole thing. So it just did it again. But I'm actually trying to get rid of it in this case, so it's just fine. So
So if you didn't delete, the info box, what would you want to use it for?
The info box, it's just in the functional spec, it only exists to tell you how to title the document.
So you really don't need the box per se.
Not at all. No. Just to show, so when I go to preview, to see what all that gibberish looks like, that's what this info box looks like. It's got this little eye indicator. But I definitely don't need that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Just because I just noticed it, I will cover something. Well, actually, never mind. Okay, so I'm going to. There are these great how to use the status macros and functional spec report links. And if I click on these, it's actually going to open them. And click on go to link, it actually opens it in a new window. So I'm not going to leave editing, which is pretty nice. So I'm still editing over here. And there's a guide on how I can use this. So you'll always have this very quickly available for reference. So I decided it was mod SR 111. I decided it was cool SR thing. And now the JIRA number. And there were a lot of questions about how JIRA and Confluence link together. So I will show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and insert more content. And I'm going to insert a JIRA issue. And as I mentioned before, everything below this line may or may not exist for you. So I'm going to pretend it's not there, just for completeness. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Other Macros, and I'm going to search for JIRA issue. I'm going to click on JIRA. And now within JIRA, it's important that you're already logged into JIRA in the same web browser. This will make the whole thing a lot easier. So I can search. I can actually create a new issue from inside of here if I want to. So I go ahead and, so let's say I'm reviewing meeting minute notes and realize I need to create a new ticket. I can do it from directly in here. Although it gives you a relatively limited number of fields. So yeah, probably.
One thing that was, I don't know if it wouldn't be useful here, but one thing that you can do is like if you highlight a phrase and then decide you want to make a JIRA ticket out of it, like a summary, and those things are in a table, it'll actually infer to create JIRA tickets out of everything in the table. I created 14 tickets at once that way, which was really cool. Yeah. So if you know,
sleep at night?
no, I'm just saying like, if you know that a project is going to have, it's going to have this ticket, and then it's going to have a query ticket, and it's going to have a security ticket, and it's going to have a move stuff to the query tree ticket, and a notify East ticket. You could put those in a table, and then just one swipe will create tickets for all of those things, which is pretty cool. Anyway, that's later. Sorry.
So I'm going to go ahead and search for a ticket that I had already created. And click on the little search guy. And it's going to find my test issue. I'm going to go ahead and insert it. Now that it's going to do two things after I go ahead and save it. So I'm going to go ahead and save it at this point. One of the reasons to actually use the JIRA issue macro type instead of just typing the letters SA17044 is because it pulls in the actual information about the ticket from the other side. So you can see that I can link to it directly, but it also pulled in test issue. I didn't type in test issue. It's also pulling in design queued. Now if I go over and look at the issue in JIRA itself, test issue, if for some reason I changed the name of this to longer, go back to this page and reload it, should change it right there. And it will track, and far more importantly, it's going to display to you the current status of the ticket, design queued. So I will go ahead over here, I'm going to go ahead and start working on it. If I go over here, it should say design active.
That is neat. It's never noticed that.
So the other thing it's done on this side is it's also linked it together. So this is the one that I was working on last night to sort of prepare for the meeting, and this is the one I just created. So it has mentioned in over here. The linkage this way isn't, there's no status that it's showing on this side or anything like that. But you are able to track them back and forth like that. And it's all done automatically.
Does it take you into the spec when you click on that?
Yes. It would take me back to Confluence.
So if I have an associated project page, can I also have a project page in Jira?
Sure.
Cool. I should likely put the spec on the project page.
Right. So if I want to, actually didn't test this, so let's see what happens. There we go. So if I want to create an issue link, I go ahead and click add link. And over here, I now have an option for Confluence page. So I'm going to go ahead and search for a page. Looks like this is a slightly different interface, but let's just pretend that I'm searching for something about Control M. Oh no. So let's talk to Michael about that. Just can't. So there you go.
Can you link that to other things? Because could you link them to Google Docs?
Yeah, I can put in any web link I want.
No, I mean, maybe I don't understand Jira. It seems like you're referencing Jira to I don't know, is that when you're actually using the content from that Jira to get into the Confluence page?
No.
Or is it just a link to the Jira?
Just a link.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess Margaret said that she created a bunch of tickets straight from Confluence. So I was wondering, if you have a table in Confluence, could you link that to your Google Drive and create an Excel file? You know what I mean? No, that's not what you were saying.
It just can't do that. Yeah.
Jira and Confluence are both made by the same vendors.
Oh.
So that's one of the reasons you can get a more tight coupling between the two.
Okay.
So Ryan makes a good point. We definitely want to get away from attaching specs inside of Jira. So another question that came up, somewhat related, is how do you export out of here? So if you go under Tools, you can export to PDF and you can export to Word. So on Monday after we do the weekend preview meeting, this is what most of us on the tech team do: is we go to export to PDF, and it's going to save it off for you. So if for some reason you wanted to capture a specific point in time, this could actually be one way to do it, where you could export it to a PDF and save this off and reattach it to the file itself, to the page itself.
Which is a great way to send things to functions for a group. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it comes out really nice too.
Yeah, it's really cool.
But do not do this and attach this to Jira. Okay.
What do you want to do that?
It should just be a direct link to the spec. Otherwise, we just end up with, because as soon as you attach this in Jira, Now, in order to view it, it's going to download it to my hard drive. Now I've got 12 copies of the spec.
Any attachments in Jira are just pain to get up. Depending on which browser you're in, sometimes it like kills my browser, especially IE, this new version.
See, and I'm a big fan of this. So you must hate my tickets. They've always got
Get the
75
attachments
attachments.
stick royally.
Yeah, they do.
So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit with the status macro, which is kind of key to how the functional spec process works. So with the status macro, it's actually really straightforward. I don't know if you remember, well, you probably remember well the 2-hour meeting we had yesterday where it said Jira and Confluence all over the place. That was just this. That was actually the status macro.
These are just labels.
They're just labels.
Don't drive anything.
That are kind of nicely formatted.
But you can query.
But you can query for them, yes. But you can also type in anything you want here, so it's unrestricted. So really all you can do is change the text and change the color. So what we've decided on for the process is, as it moves through the process, so right now it says tech estimate needed. We'll pretend that I'll come in and do for approval. I'm going to go ahead and change this to for approval. And I'll also say that Chris is the VA. I'm going to go ahead and save this out. So Margaret, when she designed this, is using a very advanced macro called page properties. So this little table here is actually exposing all of these properties sort of to Confluence as a whole, and you can use it in other ways. So I've opened in this other window, if you go to the functional spec report, this window here, she's directly including some of the properties at that level. So this table is derived from the page we were just editing. So SR111, you'll see where it says status for approval. I'll go ahead and change my status. We'll pretend that we've approved this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on edit. Change this, and look what the next approved is the next phase. So I'm going to change this to approved, green, save. Now if I go to this page and reload it, this for approval should change to approved. It's super cool. I think we would need a whole other session to go over the page properties macro. So for the purposes of your spec flow, especially for the executive overview part, this is sort of the nuts and bolts of what you have to sort of toggle as it goes through the process. So let's say I'm done with my executive overview and I need to actually build the spec itself further on down the line. So we'll just get down here to required elements then. I find that this editor works pretty much like I use Word, at least, which is that I can just copy and paste stuff into it. So I'm going to say, I want the screen to look like this. And now I'm going to go into Snagit. So I've got this all loaded up in Snagit. I'm going to go ahead and select it all, Control A, Control C, go back to my editor, and find my mouse. I'm going to paste it in. That's it. And it's there. Or let's say I'm not a cut and paster, I'm a drag and dropper. So I've already got the document I want. I've already got it saved off. So I'm just going to copy it right in the middle of the document. Oops. Ignore that. Forgot you can't do it that way. So you do have to copy and paste to get images in here. Well, that's not true. That's the easiest way to get images in here. But let's go ahead and say that I want to do it the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and save this document. I will go into my attachments for this document. You'll see that that image that I uploaded before just magically appeared as an attachment. So it's all doing that for you in the background, which is pretty slick. But I want to add in PeopleSoft register, or let's say that I have an image that I had already attached to the document and I just want to display it again somewhere. So now I've got PeopleSoft register.png. Now I will go back to my document. I will go back to edit. I will scroll down to where I wanted to put the image. And I will click on insert more content, insert image. And now it's going to pull up all of the attachments I already have on the page, which is pretty handy. I can also insert an image from the web. I just pick a URL. Apparently, I can also search for other things that are already out there. I'll go ahead and just put the one I just attached. Insert. Beyond that, you can alter the image a little bit, which I've done on some of the screenshots that I do, because if you have a whole page full of documentation, it's massive. So you can go ahead and make the size smaller. In this case, I made it a lot smaller. So let's make it about that size. I can put a border on it if I want. I think I can get really fancy, and I'll go with that. Cute. Broke it.
Now, what if you want to do like Graham always loves me for this? What if you want to put 16 text boxes in there with arrows to where you want everything?
Let me go ahead and save this first. So you see now that I've got this in there, and I shrunk it, but I can still get to the original image by clicking on it. So right now, it sounds like, Ryan, you're using Word to add all your
I
arrows.
do, and then I put my arrows in the text box and say, I want this changed to this.
Right.
I want that to look like this.
That, as far as I know, is not possible, or certainly not easy in
So doing the
Confluence.
snag it.
Yeah, I would just do it in Snag,
No problem.
which is what I use. There's also another tool called Diagramly, which you can do that in. That's actually outside. Well, it's 11:57, so I'm gonna
Yeah, no problem.
wrap it up. Are there any burning questions of really basic functionality that I haven't covered? Or actually, let me rephrase that. Do all of you think you can use Confluence now? Okay. So there's a meeting next week to discuss how we want to organize, and when I say that, I think it's mostly going to be a discussion around how you are organizing it and sort of best approaches. But I don't know if we're going to mandate TC must organize it this way and AD must organize it this way. But at the same time, there have been requests for some amount of standardization. But we can also achieve that with tags. So if you decide you want to create whatever structure you want, as long as you tag your actual functional spec with functional spec, with the word functional spec or whatever word we come up with, we can create a separate page that just lists, here are all the functional specs. So that's something that we can consider.
I don't want to start that discussion now, but I still think we need to link through mod tracker.
I was thinking that we could have like a workflow of step one, step two, go to mod tracker, write your functional spec,
Yes.
write your project page,
Exactly.
kind
There
of
is
thing. And
already.
it's because right now they're all kind of
Every,
All over the
yeah.
place, exactly. And then all you have to do is a link.
I added my own.
They're supposed to be here.
So,
in here.
No, I Well, I showed it last time.
I mean, they're here, but I was gonna link the specs.
Really, if you
Yeah,
go,
that's what this column for
Yeah, see, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but I'd love to link the specs, the project page,
Yeah, like
everything
that.
related to that, yeah.
see that I added mine, see in
Yeah.
the top right corner?
See, perfect, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, those are, but I also, that's to my personal, like it's my
That's a good
the
idea.
actual DT
Yeah.
page. If you click on that, it goes to my functional space
Nice.
page. Maybe.
Cool.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome.
nice, yeah, I like that.
Very beautiful.
That's the kind of thing I think we need to standardize. Anyway, sorry,
And-
that's a meeting for another day.
And again, so if you've put something somewhere because you just did, and you really wish that it had been somewhere else.
It's really easy to do.
Okay.
It's like super easy.
So you can either move it, which I walked through before,
Yeah,
or not care, and just link it back to whatever page you wanted.
that's right. Okay.
So the last thing I want to point out is this Confluence tips page, which has some of the stuff. I would encourage you as you find things to put it on to add more content on here. But it also has this is actually the second tech lab that I've done. So this is a recording of the first one that I did, which was actually a little more advanced than this one. So you'll see that I covered file storage, I covered at mentions, which I haven't done here at all. I covered hidden, which is a neat feature. I did talk a little bit about Diagramly, which is a pretty cool flowcharting tool built in. And so if you want to download that and listen to it, and this is also where I'll upload what we covered today.
I'm almost feeling like the point of all of this is for us to, I'm just talking outside my head here, is to live, pretty much live in Confluence. It should be a place where you go to almost explicitly, just to be sure that, because I'm a real creature of habit where, you open up Word or Excel or whatever,
Yes.
create stuff and attach it. And so it's just trying to train yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do business a little differently.
It's so much better than SharePoint.
It is.
Why don't you SharePoint at all unless I'm looking for old stuff?
There's actually one part of SharePoint that I miss, and I don't know if it can be done yet. So in SharePoint we have documents that everybody edits and they check out, and then they check them back in, and the edits are there. And right now the three of us work on the same documents all the time, and sometimes they're saved on people's desktops, and we've got different new edits now, like in Confluence.
Right.
And I've been this whole time trying to play with the media or Microsoft Office macros. I can't actually seem to get those down. Those, if anybody had used those, the Office macros, or I found a way that you can upload a document, kind of like a checkout type deal that we had in Confluence.
They're a little buggy, but I want to say if you upload a document and then trying to find one, I think PTF has some. If you upload some kind of document and then sorry, I'm trying to training and presentation. There is this little arrow here where you can, it does keep a version history, and you can also go to properties and you can make comments, but I'm not sure if it would log comments by version. But if you take something out and then put it back in, I think it'll version it. And then you can put comments here.
Is there a way to combine versions? No. Okay.
I mean, you're restricted to what Word will do.
Well, I was just thinking like if Heather edits it and then Brandon edits it, and they both put it up at the same time and they beat each other's edits.
Yeah.
Is there a way to?
Yeah, I mean that would definitely happen too. What we're doing.
Do they?
That's a good question.
Is what you're editing? Do they have to stay in Word docs? Is there a reason you can't?
We're doing like Excel. Well, okay. Well, no, I guess they don't. I guess we could create, but it's a huge table. it's every major and minor. I mean, that's how we keep track of curriculum updates. And there's a ton of information with this one Excel.
No, I don't have a good answer for that right now.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
Very
a lot,
much.
Brett.
Thank you. Bye.
It's a full house.
Yeah.